Welcome back to the SnackWalls podcast. I'm Mike Roberts, your host, and we're here to talk about increasing and maintaining diversity in tech beyond the perks. While companies think they can lure people in with unlimited PTO and dogs in the office, we're here to talk about how you keep them. All right, I'm going to throw out to our special guest today in a few sentences. Can you tell us who you are and what it is that you do?
Well, my name is Gary Ware. I run a company called Breakthrough Play, and it's my mission in life to use the power of play and applied improvisation to help individuals and organizations connect better, be more creative, and at the end of the day, bring more joy and fulfillment.
I like that. Love having fun, and especially if we can bring that into our workplace, makes life so much easier because we spend so much time at work. So you got to make it enjoyable. I'm hearing from some leaders in tech that finding diverse talent is a challenge. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have this belief that, based on your view in life, it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. And I agree that, there needs to be more diversity in tech. And I was actually leading a workshop with a company, and it was after all of the things that was happening in the U.S., after the killing of George Floyd and, the civil unrest in this organization. They wanted to bring their team together to have a town hall meeting, and I was facilitating that. And one of the questions that they went off into virtual breakout rooms was to discuss is, how can we bring more diverse people? And on the surface, the first thing that everyone said, well, we don't see enough diverse candidates. We don't, see any people of color come through. And then we asked a little bit deeper and we said, well, why? And when they started uncovering and like that onion, they were pulling back all the layers. Right. They realized that in the places they were looking, there weren't diverse people. And it required some extra effort on their part to figure out, well, where are these diverse candidates? Where can we find them? Are there certain schools that have a more diverse sort of background? Should we be looking there? Should we even go back as far as we can and think of, well, how can we support in our neighborhoods those inner city schools to make people of color feel like this is an option for them?
Absolutely. And seeing people and knowing people that are in that space, I think is the easiest way to start early when you're looking at like, how do we make an impact there? I love the idea of like going into an organization and really, like you said, peeling back the layers. If you can name it, you can tame it, right? So if they can identify what some of those gaps are, like if you're only going to progressively white institutions of higher learning, then you're probably only going to get X types of candidates. So I think that's totally awesome that you're out there making that kind of an impact out in the space. So that said, what do you think about the push to remove the requirement for CS degrees for software engineering roles?
And see, this is a great question. And I feel like this is a step along the way of trying to get a diverse pool of candidates. You look at where people are getting their education. Yes, there are prestigious universities that are, pushing the envelope as it pertains to things in the CS industry. But, that's, privilege. In order to get to college, that's a privilege. And, with the internet and with so many other resources, I have a belief that you can get that education so that you can, do it on the fly. And maybe some of these people are self-learners. Maybe, some of those people have mentors that taken them under their wing. I know for a fact. So I went to the Art Institute in Santa Monica. Doesn't even exist anymore. And it was more of a trade type school. And all the things that we learned in school are non-existent. Learned on like Flash 1, before Photoshop CS. And all the things that I learned that have me where I am today in my career, I learned outside of school. So I have this $80,000 piece of paper that basically says I know how to learn. And so I feel like there are other ways that you can get those candidates without them having a degree.
I like how you that's a great answer. I like how you said it demonstrates your capacity to be able to learn, right? And that's what I think is invaluable. I agree. And that's what I think the gatekeepers are focused on, is like setting up some barrier that says, okay, if they get over this, then I know they know how to learn, right? Because to your point, when I went to school and took some computer science classes in undergrad, it was like Fortran. Like they were teaching
Yeah,
Fortran.
agreed.
I
Right.
mean, I've been coding for a while, but still, like that's. I don't think much of that is relevant today. I mean,
Right.
COBOL is even in more use than Fortran right now. So, yikes. So that said, I think I might have an insight on this question, but what do you think about the apprenticeship pattern? Do you think that would work for technical roles?
I do. Because if you think about, like what we said earlier, how can you get someone that has the ability to learn, that has that hunger and drive? And I think it was Forbes that they surveyed some of the top CEOs and leaders, and it was interesting. Someone's technical ability was only 30% of their success. And if you think about the old school apprenticeship, bringing someone under your wing, showing them how to work, how to get things done, and yes, you're going to learn those technical skills so that you can, be able to do the job. But you're going to learn so much more. You're going to learn about grit. You're going to learn how to be adaptive. A lot of those things you don't learn sitting in a classroom.
Correct.
And yes, with like computer science and things like that, it is very hands on. It's very technical, and yes, you need to learn that. But there's something about having a mentor almost like download their knowledge of like, hey, you know what, this is, you need to avoid this, you need to do this, and they're going to give you that real time information, and you'll probably get so much more wisdom. So I'm
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
about the apprenticeship.
I love the sort of the lived experience exchange there, where folks can say, like they might tell you this out there, but let me show you how we actually do it, and this is how it works out in the real world. So that's an amazing, I think, take on like why apprenticeships matter. Um, what advice would you share with companies that are looking to retain diverse talent? So let's say they do a great job of acquiring and they have this diverse flood of folks coming into the organization. How do you make sure that they stay and they feel like this is the right place for them?
So there's two areas I definitely want to focus on. One, there's an amazing book by I believe his name is Neel Doshi and Lindsay McGregor. The book is titled "Prime to Perform," and it is the science of total motivation. And they say, for once we can have metrics on culture, because culture's been that elusive thing. It's like, hey, how do we have great culture? And companies that once had great culture, something happens, and then the culture crumbles because it's not intentional. And so in that book, they talk about the three direct keys to motivation, and then they talk about the three indirect. And they say most companies, they focus on the indirect, and those are the things that are going to optimize for tactical performance, so your ability to
Okay.
like do a job, but it's not going to optimize for adaptive performance, the ability to think on your feet, the ability when challenges arise to actually have the motivation and the drive to actually want to go above and beyond. And so the I'll briefly tell you like the three motivators. And for companies, if you can focus on the direct motivators, you can get people to stay. And then I'll mention about diversity and why, what you should focus there.
Sure.
So the three direct motives that they mention in that book are play, purpose, and potential. So play, how can the employees see the work as play? Not the hey, we're playing, but see, I like to say childlike versus childish. When you bring in that childlike mind, you have creativity, you have wonder, you have curiosity. Those are all amazing attributes that are going to get someone to dive into the work. So purpose, the impact of the work. Someone may be, churning out code, but the impact of the code that they create on the customers or on the company, that's important, and you can measure that, you can optimize for that. And then potential, bringing in new people and they can see their potential to grow within the organization. That's important. the interesting thing is most organizations, they optimize for the indirect motives, which are the indirect motives are emotional pressure. So, hey, if you make a mistake, that's going to be shame on you. Or, they don't, people don't want to make mistakes because they're going to feel like they're disappointing someone. I like to call that the mother syndrome of like, oh, if I make a mistake, mama's going to be mad. So that's emotional pressure. The other one's economic pressure. And so that is, where bonuses comes in. That's where,
Right.
hey, if I don't hit this quota, I'm not going to reach certain things. And again, that's great for optimizing tactical performance. But when you are focusing so much on that, you get behavior that you wouldn't have had otherwise. You get people that, again, focusing on, people that are coders and whatnot. They may be, if they have like a quota, like, hey, we have to get so many lines of code out, and we're focusing on all these indirect measures, they may shortcut. They may, not take the time to go back and review things, and that will result in more mistakes and things like that. And then at the end of the day, it leads to the last indirect motive, and that's inertia, where it is so far removed from the work. You're just doing it just because you were doing it yesterday, and you're like, oh, well, I'm here, and it is what it is. And that those motivators are so far from removed from the work, like you're not going to get someone to go. So that is how to just keep cultures in check. But now focusing on diverse population, this is where it's important to think about, why would they even want to be there? Do they feel like their needs are going to be heard? Do they feel like, the people that are at the top really care about them? Do you have other? So again, going back to the direct motives, the potential. Do you have people of color on your board? Is that even an opportunity?
Right.
And so that is something that a lot of organizations, especially if they want diverse population, to try to think about that, and also think about things from different cultures perspective. Someone that I really admire, her name is Michelle Kim. She runs a company called Awaken, and it's a uh, uh, di- diversity, equity, and inclusion type company. They do a lot of really great workshops. They hold a lot of space for these conversations. And she brought up a good point of some of the things that are discredited will make people of different ethnicities and backgrounds actually shy away. And again, these are these microaggressions. These are the things that we think are normal that again are going to make someone feel like they're not home there. And one of the ones that I learned, and I didn't really think about this, she was saying that a number of people where English is not their first language, when you spend so much effort criticizing people's grammar, criticizing the way people talk, they may not feel welcome there. And again, I know all the people that are the sticklers for grammar and stuff like that are like the hairs on the back of their necks are starting to
Sure.
crawl. But again, if someone were, you have to think about it, they grew up speaking one language and they had the tenacity to learn another language. I barely know English. I'm just going to be honest. I barely can speak English, and they could speak
So
their native
true.
language and
So true.
English, right? English is challenging. It is so challenging. And they make some mistakes on grammar or something like that. Again, and then they're criticized for that. It's gonna make them feel less than. Again, things like that. Looking, pulling the curtain back and thinking about like what are the things that we're probably not even conscious to, that we've done it just because that's just how it's been done, that may make people feel like they don't belong. I'm a black man. I have locks. For the longest time, locks was not considered a professional hairdo. I remember when I first got them. I admire people that can stick with locks. And this is the thing. If you see someone that has locks and you were considering hire them because guess what? It takes dedication. When I first got my locks done, they looked weird. People were like, "What's up with your hair?" Because they were like all wiry and stringy, and I had to go through that. It was an awkward phase, very awkward phase, just like when you're learning anything. But I stuck with it. I was dedicated to what it takes. It was funny because I got locks because I was lazy, because I wanted something that was easy to maintain, and I didn't want to just go completely bald. And so I saw people with locks. I'm like, wow, that looks good. I want locks. And then once I got them, I was awakened to like, hey, guess what? This takes more maintenance than the hair that I had before. But I stuck with it. And again, there's these things that it shows other sort of potential. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that's a great demonstration of a signal that sometimes people pick up the signal and they misinterpret it. And instead of them seeing it as a positive attribute, they, for whatever reason, see it as something else. So I think that's a great example of how people should do more self-evaluation, think about their implicit biases and how those might be applied towards, like, are we being inclusive, and are we aware of the ways that we might be pushing people away or pulling people towards us. So that there's a positive side, right? People that are more woke and are aware of what it takes to be able to tell people you can feel comfortable bringing your whole self to work every day. And we value the diversity of your culture and your opinions and your insights, the way you think. I think all of those things are amazing. So we talked about apprenticeship patterns. We talked about retaining diverse staff. And I love some of the examples of folks that you've mentioned already. But is there anybody else that you think of and you'd like to acknowledge as a leader and should be invited to be a guest on a podcast like this?
Oh, yes. And when I was thinking about that question, I was um, the first person that came to mind, amazing guy. His name is Will Reynolds. He runs a company called Sear Interactive, based out of Philadelphia, and they have grown, and they have offices in Philadelphia and San Diego. And one of the things that I admire about Will is he he's such an amazing person. He grew the company himself, and he was the CEO. It's an SEO based company, and he's done the work. It wasn't like one of those things where he had an idea and then he brought on a staff. It was in his garage. Talk about like a garage startup. He was the one sort of hustling and grinding, and then he got to the point where the company was too large for him to handle, and he stepped down as CEO. He found another CEO, another person to be CEO, and he is like still working on accounts, still working and doing the things that he loves. So he's very honest, and he has some amazing opinions on diversity, and based on his lived experience and challenges. He will speak very openly about the things that his company is going through and how um, how they had to overcome it. And he would be an amazing person
All right.
on
So
the podcast.
Will is already on the radar. There's been a few other people that have mentioned him. So I'm definitely going to see if we can get him on the program and hear his thoughts about this, because I feel like multiple people have said this is the guy, this is the person that we should be talking to. So, all right. So where can we find out more information about your company and what you're working on?
Yeah. So especially if you are ready to company, or you are at a company and you're, man, I wish I can level up these soft skills that Gary talked about. I'm really great on the technical side, but yes, I want to be more resilient. I want to be more adaptive. I want to be more creative, more confident, or I want my team to do that. Head over to breakthroughplay.com. That's where you can find some examples of my work. I'm on the social medias. My name's easy to spell, Gary Ware. Most people say it as one word. It is what it is. That's what happens when you have short names like that. And yeah, I love to connect with people and talk about stuff like this.
Great. And we'll throw links in the show notes. It'll be super easy for people to find your company and your website. And so last question I have for you, and this is the most challenging and by far the most important, and that is, what have you been snacking on lately? What's your favorite snacks?
All right. So I have a big sweet tooth. I don't know what's up with that. I love cakes. I love gummy bears. I love stuff like that. But I have to admit that it's not something, especially when you're in a global pandemic and you don't get out as much, something that you should be snacking on all the time. The other thing is, I have a 3-year-old son, and
Yeah.
I've learned as a first time parent that after a while, the kids take over. So what I've been snacking on is whatever my wife have for my son, and so that includes these veggie chips. And right now it's
Okay.
Halloween time,
I
so
like
these are ghosts
those.
and bats, and my son will eat them because they look cool, and they have vegetables. So hey, a win-win. Also, pirates booty,
Ooh, Pirate's
which
Booty's
I
good.
I laugh every time I think about that. I didn't bring it in here, but trail mix. Anything that we can buy in bulk at
There you
Costco,
go.
and my son will eat. That's what I'm snacking on.
Awesome. Those are some great snacks. So I hear a lot of examples. When you start with the cake, I was like, ooh, cake is good, but that's more than a snack. That's more like a dessert.
Right? Yeah. I'm learning this thing called portion control and to save those things for special moments. But like, for snacking, hey, it fooled me too. I'm like, hey, look, I'm eating some veggies, and it satisfied a little bit of that craving.
And I like the smaller sample sizes of the portions too.
Right?
If I open a regular bag of those like veggie straws,
They're gone.
They're gone. Just can't do it.
They're gone.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Gary, for coming on the program. I appreciate your insight. This has been a phenomenal episode. And so I'm just super excited to see if I can find some ways I can bring some of this like playfulness into our workspace. So we'll be connecting with you for sure.
Woohoo. My pleasure.
The San Diego Code School is a proud sponsor of the SnackWalls podcast. The San Diego Code School is leading companies to tech equity. The tech-enabled apprenticeship program is a venture whose heart is to do a lot of social good and do good work. You can help San Diego Code School secure funding for change by hiring developers, bringing a team in to relieve your backlog, or becoming a program sponsor. You can visit us on the web for more information at http:// sdcs.io.